Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Alec. I'm doing a technical video on PHP files, and specific how to create a login and sign up PHP file for basic database use. And so the first thing you want to do is set up your database, however you want to do it. Um, what we have is a PHP MyAdmin. We're using a LAMP database for Apache, and I'm going to be accessing it through the terminal, saving the files, and then I'm going to be testing the database using Postman. All of the stuff you can find tutorials online on how to get. You just Google Postman, and you can download that to do your access for database stuff. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the terminal, and we're going to go into I made a PHP folder which is empty, and then I'm also going to create a folder for our functions for the database, which I'm going to call include, and then I'm going to go inside of that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a file called dbfunctions.php, and this file is going to pretty much hold every function that you're going to use for your other PHP files if you want more other than login, sign up, and you can also come up with like delete users, change password, and all these other things. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this function, and the basic header for every PHP file is this line right here. And what that does is it signals to the computer that it is in fact a PHP file. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a class called dbfunctions, like that. And then the first thing you have to do is you have to make a connection, which is going to ensure that there is access to your database. So we're going to make it a private connection variable. And then we're going to create a constructor function, just like in Java and C++ and everything. There's always a constructor. And so here we are going to have a username for your database, which will be my name, Alec. And then you have to have your password for the database, which will be whatever yours is that you came up with when you created your database. And mine is Alec123. Then you're going to come up with another variable, which is database. This is going to be your database name. And so mine is, again, my database. And then you're going to come, and then we're going to do right here, we're going to do the server name, which for me is my local host. Sorry, you got to put semicolons at the end of these. Alright, so now that you've established all your variables with the variable names, we're going to basically create a connection. So you're going to have to do this with a little arrow connection. That is signaling to the computer that you're using the private connection that was installed as a global variable. Then you're going to do my squilly_connect. And inside here, you're going to put your server name variable, your username, and your password, just as you see here. Now the money sign and the name after that is the variable that you're passing in. And then after you write that, you're going to come back with a database found variable, or you can call it whatever you want, really. And you're going to do a my squilly_select db for database, and then you're going to do this connection which holds the name, which holds the information for the MySQL to connect, and then you're going to pass in the database name there, and you're going to close that off. And then you're going to create another function, which is the destructor, and we're just going to leave that one blank for now. We won't get into that in this tutorial. So now that you've done that, you can add in, you can test it out by running echoes by doing an echo in and out of here to test here and other things like that, to try and test your database, make sure you have a connection. So after you assure that all your information is correct, we can get started on creating our first few functions that we're going to use, which are going to be serve as other PHP file functions later on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a store user function. This is what we're going to do for when you have a sign up or registration for any kind of application or whatever. So we're going to go make it public function, and you can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call mine store user. Just makes sense. And for here, you're going to pass in whatever variables you want to pass in for your database. So you can do full name, password, email, full name, whatever you want. But for this tutorial, we're going to do full name, email, and password. So, and then the first thing you gotta do is you're gonna have to create we create a statement variable here, which is basically going to go through the connection and prepare a statement that we are going to use to insert into the database table. This is going to be general SQL, so we're just going to do an insert into users table. That's the name of the user table that we have here, users table. And then we're going to go to little parenthesis, and you're going to put in whatever your information you're going to put in. So we have full name, email, and password. And we don't know what those values are yet, so we do a values question mark, comma, question mark, comma, question mark, one for every variable that we have matched in there. Close it off. After you do that, you assign the statement. You don't assign it. You do the arrow function. The arrow is the way that your variables call for functions that are being used, and the prepare function is one that is given in PHP, and the bind params is another one. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to say that, type in this SSS, and this means that we're binding a string to the variable that's being passed in. So we have string for the full name variable, the email, and the password. And so this is saying that we are going to make full name, email, and password all strings, which we are passing into the database. And we're going to create a result variable, which basically is us executing this statement that we have put together. And this execute will return a Boolean. So result is a Boolean statement at this point. And then we're just going to close the statement so that we no longer can access it at this point. So from there, we're going to make an if statement, as with result being our Boolean. So result is either true or false at this point. If the statement executed properly, the result is true. So if true, then we're going to come back in and basically insert. We're going to insert the user information into the database. So I'm just going to make a comment here, inserting into database. Go back here. So statement. We're going to do the same thing we did above with this connection prepare, and this is okay, I'm sorry. No. So what we did is we executed. This means we inserted into the table, and now what I am doing is I am selecting to table to ensure that we already inserted into the database. So this is to ensure that we inserted already. So from here, we're going to do a select all from users table where email equals something. It's going to be the email that is being passed in from the function, and then we're going to bind the email parameter with a string again. And execute that. And so we are going to make this. We're going to make another variable. We're going to make a variable called user, which will be the result of statement. So this is going to be another Boolean result, but this is going to be this is actually saying that we have indeed inserted into the table, and then the next connection prepare statement with the select all from user table where email equals question mark. That is where we are getting the actual information, and it is confirming that the user was inputted into the table. So we're going to close the statement, and then we're going to return user. This is key for when we actually use the store user function later on in our registration.php file, which will be created later. So if result fails, we're going to return false. Just do some typing conventions here. And close this off, and then close off the function. So that is our store user function. So what we can do now is we can close this off and save it. So we have the dbfunctions.php. We're going to go backwards back to our PHP file, and we'll create our registration.php function, which will be basically our sign up, but I call it registration. It's just easier for me to understand. So we're going to create the PHP header, and so then what we're going to do from there is we are going to add in this line called require once. This is basically saying that we are going to use the file include dbfunctions.php, and then we're going to create a database variable, which is new db functions. So this gives us access to every function that is in DB functions, which we got from the line above. And so one thing that we're going to allow this file to do is give us a JSON response. And so what this is going to do is whenever we have a true or false, we want to have confirmation from the system that we have indeed got the correct answer that we wanted, or did not get the answer that we wanted at all. So we're going to create a response variable, which is an array, and we're going to start with the array error message and make that false. And we're going to call, and this is the JSON response array, just so we know. Okay, so now what we're going to do is for registration.php, we are going to do an if is set function, and the is set function will tell you if the information coming in is null or not. So we're going to do this get, and what get does is it actually is making sure that you are pulling the you're actually pulling the information that is being sent in. Sorry, Dollar Shave Club classic. So you're gonna do an is set on full name and is set on password, on email and password. This is just so we know that the information that is being passed in from the postman, because that's how we're going to be testing our functions, is not null. If it is null, we want to spit out that, you know, hey, your stuff's null, and you don't want to put that into your database. So here we go again. We're going to do another get for password, just like that. That up. Now we're in. Okay, then we're going to be receiving the parameters. Type. And so what we're going to do is we're going to assign full name to equal the get full name. So assuming we've entered in here, this is telling us that the information that is being passed into the function is not null. So that means it's good enough for us to grab and use to store information into the table. Again, these variables that I'm passing in, you don't need to have so many. You can have more. You can do whatever you want for your own table, for your application. This is just strictly for beginner use. So from there, we're going to create a user variable, which we are going to say is database store user function, which we made in the DB functions, and we're grabbing that DB variable from up top. So this function is used in a different file, and so from here, if you remember, we pass in 3 variables: full name, email, and password. So what happens after we do this is user is essentially executed and see if it goes through. So we're going to do an if user, and if it's stored, then that means that the user stored. So that means we're in. That means user stored, which is good for us. So what we can do is we're going to fix the response variable to say what we want it to say, telling us that, hey, you know, it worked. This is another way for error messaging to go through. So we're going to set the error message to false. And then there's another part in the JSON array which we have, and we're going to spit out the user ID, which you get from the user table that I'm using will have that. Or what we can do is we can just change this to error underscore message, and what it'll tell us, we can say, hey, user stored. But for my database, I'm going to keep it as user ID, UID, like that, and equals, we'll go right here, we'll go user ID, which is going to pull from the table, and then we're going to do echo JSON encode. So PHP has a JSON encoder, and what's going to happen is it's going to take the response, it's going to put it in JSON format, and we'll see that in a second when we test this. So then we'll throw in an else in case that doesn't work. User didn't store, and we're going to do a error response. Make it true. Give the error message. And say failed to store user, like that. Encode it so that way it can be read on any device. So we recently had a project in my 442 class, and we made an Android project, and it forced me to learn PHP. So I figured that, you know, many other people can benefit from the learning that I had, so I'll try and make it easier for everybody else. And so this second else statement is to say that one of the parameters is missing or null. So we're gonna fix the response variable to basically say, hey, figure it out. You messed up somewhere. And we'll say required parameters, full name, email, password is missing. You can make it say whatever you want. You don't have to use this verbatim, but you know, whatever works for you guys. So, and then you encode it again, like that. Close this off, and then what I forgot to do in the DB functions, which I'm gonna go fix right now, is you have to end PHP files with a closer, like you had the header up there, and it's just that. So we're gonna save this, go back to include, right there. So I'm gonna go all the way down, insert right here, question mark, blah, end it, save it. Okay, now so these files are in my server already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Postman, and we can test it out. So you put in your local information for PHP, and you can send it up. And look, hey, we figured out that our required parameters are missing. So what we can do is go to parameters, click on it, key. We had to pass in a full name. We can name it whatever. We'll name it Alec. Email. and we'll do Alec at Alec. We'll do Alec at buffalo.edu like that. Key, and then we have to pass in the password, and the value we can make it ABC123. Send. Hey, go to the JSON. Error false, and it spit out my user ID. So we can go check that on our Postman on this. Hit a refresh. Hey, there I am, passed in right there. So our registration works. Woohoo! The other thing that I was going to show you guys was a login PHP function. And so for that, we're going to go back into DB functions and jump to the bottom here and enter in and create a new function called, I'm going to call it check user, just to ensure, and we're going to go off of email and password, just like you would for any other login page. Just like that. Need some room right there. Okay. So here we're going to follow the same convention that we had before. We're going to create a statement variable, and we're going to do this connection prepare. And for here, we're going to do a select statement because you want to make sure that the information that you're asking for is already in the database. Where email equals whatever. We don't really care about password right now because because without the email you don't have a password, and everyone's password can be different. You can sign up with multiple emails, however you want to do it. So then we're going to continue with the convention that we had before. Find parameters. Email is a string, just like that. And then we're going to do result equals statement execute, statements close. Sorry, got ahead of myself. It's not right. So with result, you're going to still continue to check because you still have to access the password, so you don't want to close the statement yet. So we're going to do an if results is true, meaning that the email is indeed in the database. Then we're going to do a user equals statement get results fetch association like that. Then we do the statement close, so that way we have all the information for the user stored in user. And then what we do is we'll do create a variable called pass, and that is just another variable, and we'll make that equal to user password. So this is grabbing the information that is stored for the user, and it is assigning their password to pass. And then what we do is we do an if pass equals password that is being passed in. So what you're doing is you're checking if the password being passed in is the same as the password that is stored in the database. Say that 5 times fast. Then we're going to return user, which is true, and then we run an else here. Return false. User is not in the table. Close it off. Close it off. That is the function that you're using to check the user if it is indeed in the table. Save it. Jump back to the PHP file where you have include and registration, and this is where we're going to create login.php. This is essentially us checking the information and making sure that's all in there. And you can do this in your Android app or wherever to as a login page to assign the user and make sure they're signed in. And so we're going to follow the same thing we did for registration. Do a require once and do an include db functions.php, just like that. And then do db equals new db functions, just like that. And then we're going to make the JSON response array right there. Do response equals array with error being assigned, initially assigned to false. Like that. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing as before, where we do the if set, the is set. This way you understand that the information being passed in is not null, and it all works out. Get, sorry, I'm zoning out for a second. Get email, and is set get password. Cool. So then you receive the parameters again, right there, and you do email equals get email, password equals get password. So now that you have your variables assigned, then you can start do the same things, make user equal to the function that is stored in db functions, check user, pass in the variables that you just grabbed, email and password, and then we check to make sure that the user is indeed inside the database. Right here, this is saying that it is. Response for error equals false. Response error message equals woohoo, what worked. But for mine, we're going to return the user ID. This is to help out with other things that we have going on for login that you can do. You can take the user ID and store it locally on the application, and then that way you can understand that if someone has actually left the application, you can sign them out, keep them signed in, do whatever you want to do. So from here you go user ID, just like that, and echo JSON encode response. Okay, and then if this is false, the user is not in there, then you're going to have to create a response saying, hey, the credentials you passed in are not correct, and this is no good. These are all things that are very basic for database management, just to get the ball rolling to make sure that you're on the right track. This is very redundant information that we're typing here. You're basically going to follow the same convention for almost every application you make. I mean, not application, every file that you use for PHP. So this next else statement is saying that the information being passed in is missing or null. And the true false that I'm passing in for the error message isn't caps sensitive, so you can make them all caps, all not caps, whatever you want. I'm getting lazy here, and so email or password missing, and echo JSON encode response, just like that, and close it off and end it. Boom, boom. This is your basic login.php. Actually, it doesn't get any more really harder than this. It's pretty much the same thing all the way around. Oh, I'm losing power. Oh, geez. Better hurry this up. Save it. It's in the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and use this as our login. So we're going to go back to Postman, change this to login.php, send it. Message, email or password missing. So this is where we start. We do email, alec2@buffalo.edu. Password is abc123. Send. And just like that, we are logged in. If you want to check and see and make sure that if your email or password is wrong, the user is not in there, check it. Email or password is wrong, try again, put it back, it works. This concludes the very basic tutorial on PHP functions for databases, including registration and login. Thank you very much.